Audre Lorde described herself as a black, lesbian, mother, warrior, poet. She used her talent to confront all forms of injustice. She was also an activist against homophobia, sexism, racism, and classism, and was passionate about making her point. Audre was an amazing poet and an activist who made a difference in today's world. Audre Lorde was born in New York City on February 18th, 1938. Her parents were Frederick and Linda Belmar Lorde, West Indian immigrants from Grenda. Audre grew up with her mother's stories about the West Indies. Born as Audre Lorde, she dropped the Y from her first name since she decided she liked the artistic symmetry rather than the name her parents decided on. She had two older sisters, Phyllis and Helen Lorde, and they grew up together in Manhattan. She also memorized poetry and would use it to communicate. Audre once said in an interview with the Black Women Writers, "I literally communicated in poetry, and when I couldn't find the poems to express my feelings, that's what started me writing poetry, and that's when I was around 12 or 13. She also used poetry to bond with other students at her school who were considered weird, like how she felt she was. Audre attended Catholic schools and was taught. She then applied to the prestigious Hunter High School for gifted students and got in. She published her first poem in the 17 magazine after her high school English teacher rejected that same poem. This was her start to being a famous poet, and she only got better from there. Audre studied for a year at the National University of Mexico in Cuernavaca, more confident in her identity as a lesbian and a poet. Audre earned her bachelor's degree from Hunter College and earned her master's degree in library science from Columbia University. She then worked as a librarian in the New York public schools from 1961 to 1968. In 1962, she married Edwin Rollins, a gay man, and then divorced in 1970. Before the divorce, they had two kids, Elizabeth and Jonathan. During the 1960s, Audre began publishing poetry in magazines and anthologies. She also participated in the civil rights, anti-war, and women's liberation movements. She published her first volume of poems, The First Cities, in 1968. In the same year, she earned a grant from the National Endowment for Mississippi and became the writer-in-residence at Tougaloo College. Tougaloo College is a historically black college in Mississippi. At the college, she discovered her love for teaching and met her partner, Francis Clayton, a professor of psychology. Audre's work was already noted for her strong expressions of African American identity. Still, when her second anthology, Cables to Rage, came out, it took on more political themes, such as sexism, racism, and violence. Cables to Rage included a poem called Martha, which recognized her lesbianism. Audre's work is known for her emphasis on social and racial justice, as well as queer sexuality and experience. She continued writing through the 1970s and 80s, keeping themes of racism, gender, and class. Her advocacy continued outside her literacy career as well. In 1971, she was promoted speaker at the National March on Washington for Gay and Lesbian Rights. In 1981, Audre founded the Kitchen Table, Women of Color Press. The Kitchen Table was focused on promoting feminists of color in their writing. She was also a founding member of Sisterhood and Support of Sisters. Audre was diagnosed with breast cancer in 1977. During that time, she felt that the odors of cancer treatment were silent for women and almost quiet for black women as she was. Audre felt the words of coping and healing that she encountered were more for white, heterosexual women. In 1980, to try and break down the silent wall and connect with other lesbians and women of color, Audre released a new book, The Cancer Journals. In it were her own feelings of pain, suffering, hope, and reflection. This book won the American Library Association's Caucus Book of the Year award. It became a work of illness narrative. Audre underwent a mastectomy and she refused to be a victim of this disease. Instead of looking on the dark side, she encouraged herself and other women to be and feel like warriors. Sadly, her cancer later spread to her liver. This battle with cancer inspired her essay collection, A Burst of Light. Instead of getting surgery like she did before, she decided on a different treatment this time. Audre battled cancer for more than a decade and spent her last years of life living on the U.S. Virgin Islands. During this period, Audre changed her name to an African name, Gamba Adisa. Gamba Adisa means she who makes her meaning clear. Audre passed on November 17th, 1992. She spent her last days on the island of St. Croix. The island of St. Croix is the largest island out of the U.S. Virgin Islands. When she passed away, her legacy was still strong. Audre Lorde empowered and helped so many people. She was an incredible and strong woman who was an inspiration to a lot of people still today. With her poetry skills and her activism, she was a powerful person who changed the country. She told us that even if you have something major in your life, such as breast cancer, you can stay strong. She had a real spark as a chance maker.